think that when my mindset shifted, and I think that closing my construction company and really taking 2-3 years to evaluate what I did wrong and where my mind was, once I embraced the concept of the core values and then realized that when I was leading with my heart first and then solving these tricky problems second, I found that the world just opened up and my energy to deal with it opened up. I found that the buy-in that I got from the people in my life was so much more impactful for me that it sort of opened the floodgates.
Welcome to the Great Talent, Great Business Podcast, your go-to resource for building exceptional teams and thriving businesses. Each episode delivers actionable insights on harnessing offshore talent, integrating innovative technology, cultivating a vibrant company culture, and attracting and retaining top performers. Subscribe now to never miss an episode. For more resources, visit greattalentpodcast.com. where you can download this episode's free worksheet designed to help you apply today's insight to your business. And now, here's your host, Rob Levin.
Today, I'm joined by Matt Tritt, founder and president of Greenlight Consulting and Management, a boutique owner's representation firm based in New York City. With more than 20 years in real estate development and construction, Matt helps developers navigate complex ground-up and adaptive reuse projects while building long-term partnerships rooted in integrity and results. He's passionate about leading a values-driven company where collaboration, transparency, and tailored solutions come first. Matt, welcome to the show, and let's dive right in.
Thank you, Rob.
Great to see you. So, Matt, just to put everything in perspective, tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
Well, it started somewhat unique for somebody in the development construction business because it started in a totally different industry, which is film. I was a film major and ended up going on to make several movies, some of which I took to various festivals throughout. And my dream was to produce movies. And what ended up happening was my cinematographer had a brother in construction who I started to do side jobs with as sort of the start of my entrepreneur journey in this field, thinking that this would just be a side job to make money and I would go on to continue to make films. And really quickly, what happened was the side jobs started to become my full-time job. And partly because I actually loved it. You know, making a movie can take years, right? And not that new buildings don't, but it's really just such a uniquely tangible and similar business construction to the film industry. And so what happened over the early part of my career was I started to shift more and more and more over to the construction side and less the film. And I remember going to a party one day where instead of introducing myself as a filmmaker who does construction, it was the reverse. It was, I'm a contractor who makes movies. Eventually it became, I'm just a contractor. And that's how I started my business. And interestingly, what my first real job as a project manager in construction, and I think this is key, is that all of my experience comes from doing. I didn't go to school for construction management. Everything I did came from doing, but I was really lucky to have a mentor when I started my first construction company with him, Urban Builders Group, James Cars. I remember we started out of his apartment and I was just absorbing everything. And he was such a great teacher. It turns out his dad is James Cars, who developed the theory of the infinite game, who Simon Sinek went on to kind of mainstream. His son was my first mentor and boss. So learned a lot and didn't know it yet, but the infinite game concepts would greatly influence how I run my business today. I think it was in 2008, the crash, recession, and I left that company to start my own construction company. And this is really important because it's not what I do. I'm in construction and development today, but as an owner's rep, I was a contractor, an at-risk contractor for 10 years before doing this. And when I started that entrepreneurial journey, I was very much winging it, right? I was very much doing what was intuitively made sense to me. I was hiring based on a set of criteria that was pretty random and, again, very intuitive. And really, it was just, I was very good at getting business, but then the operations side struggled really hard to make everybody in the company come together under one common goal. And what ended up happening is I got burned out. As you could imagine, if you don't have a structure and a purpose other than just doing work and making money, it actually is a self-defeating endeavor in a lot of ways. So that lack of overall vision and lack of overall purpose was really harmful to me on a personal level, and it was harmful to my company on a professional level. We were successful, but it wasn't the type of success that was sustainable. So I ended up closing the construction company. And for several years, I was helping other people build their projects. At the time, an owner's rep was a very new word for me. I had never met an owner's rep as a contractor, but now suddenly I know I love to build. I know I love helping people build, but I didn't want all of that, the company and the people and all this stuff. I didn't want it because, frankly, I had it and I didn't know how to make it work well.
Right.
So the next phase of my journey was really just me by myself with 2 or 3 clients and helping them build new buildings. I had transitioned from apartment interiors to ground up construction, which I'm really fortunate. My dream has always been to change the New York skyline and to do big things. So the fact that I was able to do that was tremendous. But after a little bit of time, I started to realize, well, what gets me out of bed every morning is actually helping people. And this idea of people was allergic to me at the height of my construction company. It was the people that I was struggling with the most. As I started to realize later that it's actually the people that I connect with that make me excited to get out of bed and to go help. Yes, I like building buildings, but I actually like connecting with the people building the buildings. And so I looked back into my time as a construction company and I was like, what did I do wrong? And there was a lot of things, but one of the things that I did wrong was I didn't work with a business coach. So I reached out to the guy who had helped me or tried to help me, and I just wasn't in a place to listen.
Right.
And I called him and I said, Mark, I'd love to start to build a new company. I feel like the people aspect is what I'm drawn to the most. What's my first move? Can you help me? And really, he gave me a couple books and I was in a place ready to listen. This is for the people out there who are 2 to 10 people. This is a boutique story. We have about 2.5 million square feet in development and construction today. We're not a big company. This is very much a small entrepreneurial journey. But it's about intentionality and it's about focusing on each part of the business and actually not just trusting your intuition, but actually coming up with a foundation for why the company exists. I know you probably believe in this too, but setting up those core values really served as the main thrust behind everything that followed, because that's how I've essentially been able to get buy-in, not only amongst all of the employees we have today, but also with the relationship with the clients.
Yeah. The one word, and this word has come up on this podcast many times, that just popped out in my mind is you went from kind of winging it to being deliberate about how you were going to run the business and how you were going to deal with people. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I think that is the big decision maker. And when I talk to other business owners, which I love to do, and I obviously you do as well, but when I talk to other business owners who are in their phase of the entrepreneurial journey that I was when I was just starting, recently I had a conversation with somebody who was thinking about hiring a virtual assistant, and they couldn't understand why I made a big deal about this being a really important step. When, of course, I talk about buy back your time, and we went over how he was spending his time and what a virtual assistant could do. And it was one of those things where having a very, very specific, intentional conversation around a problem of time management at somebody whose time is valued at $700 an hour and all of the tasks that that person's doing throughout the day, which we went through, and how to be able to offload hours of that addiction to email and going and scheduling things yourself and controlling every little thing to being able to offload a lot of that time to somebody whose time isn't necessarily worth $700 an hour, right?
Yeah. You have somebody at $700 an hour doing $35 to $50 an hour work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where at a prior time in my entrepreneur, I would have probably not been open to that as a concept, because I would have wanted to have seen this person. I would have wanted to be able to walk into their room and interact with them. And when you actually break down the need, and actually become open to other solutions, it becomes very much, I hate saying this, but it becomes almost a no-brainer to actually engage with other ways of doing things. And I think if you think of every part of the process that openly and that deliberately, you'll find your solutions.
Yeah. Speaking to one of the converted, I got my first assistant 11 years ago and it changed my life. And everybody says the same thing, which is, why didn't I do this 5 or 10 years ago? Right. And then, of course, I liked the concept so much that I decided to start a business around that. Because I don't know if you know this, but when we started, we weren't providing certified professionals in 40 roles. We were just providing assistance to business owners, because we believe every business owner should have an assistant so they can focus on their unique ability, which is what you were talking about with this other business owner. This episode is brought to you by Work Better Now, your trusted partner for accessing high-performing talent from Latin America. Our clients say that partnering with Work Better Now has transformed their businesses by providing the proactive, reliable, and skilled professionals they need to thrive. For more resources to help your business grow, visit workbetternow.com/eguide. And if you're ready to build your dream team, head to workbetternow.com to schedule your consultation today. As a special thank you to Great Talent, Great Business listeners, we're offering $150 off your first 3 months. Just mention Great Talent during your consult. Matt, it seemed like there was, and I think you used the term, or maybe you didn't, but I heard the term inflection point, where you decided to stop doing business kind of, certainly with people, in a very haphazard sort of way. And then, as I mentioned, from what you were saying, being very deliberate about how you were going to work and how you were going to work with people. Was there a moment? Did this happen over time? And the reason I ask is that I feel, just as you were implying with this other discussion you had, I feel like a lot of people just have to get to that moment, and then there's just a lot of clarity. What was it
Yep.
like for you?
So it went from leading from a place of pure numbers and strategy and project management to leading through the heart. And it comes from a deep caring of other people, of the project, of the client. And I think that, and caring for yourself and self-care, of course. I think that when my mindset shifted, and I think COVID had a lot to do with this, and I think that closing my construction company and really taking 2-3 years to evaluate what I did wrong and where my mind was. Once I embraced the concept of the core values and then realized that when I was leading with my heart first and then solving these tricky problems second, I found that the world just opened up and my energy to deal with it opened up. I found that the buy-in that I got from the people in my life was so much more impactful for me that it sort of opened the floodgates. And then the second thing I did is I can't do it myself. I have 2 coaches and I have a great set of advisors around me, mentors, who I meet with on a weekly and monthly basis, who I talk through these problems with. And I share my successes. I talk about some losses. I talk about the issues. And it's very much, I don't necessarily feel like I could solve and do this entire thing on my own with my own intuition.
Right.
Or just reading books occasionally. Those are all wonderful things, and I have a strong intuition, but bringing together a group of people who are very, very knowledgeable about setting up a structure for a company and how to scale it and grow it, having those people in my life has been the most important step that I've taken. And then, frankly, coming from a place of deep caring only, I think, resonates with the people that work at Greenlight and also the people that we work for. I think that's connecting is probably one of the things we're strongest at.
Yeah.
Because every project and client is different.
We have a guy here in the New York construction business talking about how he's caring. All right. So those of you in New York who are watching or listening, you might be like, hey, I'm not sure I'm going to get this. So I'm going to try to help Matt explain this to everybody. How have core values shaped the outcomes for your team and for your clients? In other words, and I'm guessing caring has a lot to do with the core values. How does that actually not only make you happier, but how does that improve the outcomes of your business?
Well, if you care, you listen, right? And if you lead with your heart, you're able to connect with other human beings who then appreciate that you care about the same things or about things as much as they do. So, as an owner's rep, we're aligned with the owner in the execution of a development project. And these developers are incredibly high functioning, visionary, big ideas who are managing projects with insane amounts of debt and responsibility. The stakes are incredibly high. If we don't care about that, we simply won't fit within the paradigm that they're operating in.
It probably also feels like much more of a struggle at that point, right? Because it's like there's a lack of alignment. It's
There's a lot of burnout.
yeah,
Right. These projects take sometimes 3 years. So if you're only getting up every day to go and solve a project management problem, of which there are hundreds that you deal with on a weekly basis, you're going to burn out if your only reason for getting out of bed in the morning is to solve problems on a project level basis. But if you're getting up to help your client succeed and you're genuinely caring about their success, the purpose is much greater. And we have a thing called SIDQ, which when every project starts, we do an initial project setup. And one of the things that I try to get the team to do and to buy in is that each owner is unique and the things that they care about is unique and they all manage projects differently. And so that core value of connection and of active listening and of high EQ is critical because the first step is actually listening and trying to understand what that particular client cares about so that you can acknowledge it and then really lean into that because it's different for everybody. Again, going back to that deliberate process, we're not just jumping into a project to just put a building up. We're actually trying to solve the client's issues that they care about the most
yeah.
on a weekly basis. So it's something that we keep coming back to.
Can you give us an idea or an example maybe of one or two core values so that people can visualize what this looks like at Greenlight?
Sure. I think the number one core value for us is this idea of connection. Again, it's the people within the business that you're trying to connect with because frankly, whether it's us introducing somebody that can unlock an issue, or if it's us connecting with the client to understand the need, or us helping and working part of a larger team for a very long period of time, without connection, we just simply can't be successful. And integrity and dependability are their two main core values. Construction, that you just made a joke about caring construction. I think integrity goes a long way towards that as well. Knowing that we have incredibly high integrity is something that's important in the development and construction business, that our interests are completely aligned with the client. There was one quick example, a developer client was worried about kickbacks and things like this. They wanted to write into my contract that if there was any sort of untoward relationship with a vendor that I would be penalized, I think $20,000 or something like that. And I said, make it $1 million. Just make it 10 million. That's just not how we operate. We don't even think about it. And because of that, our interests are 100% always aligned with the client.
Yeah.
And then lastly, dependability. This is something that I have in spades and everybody who comes to work at Greenlight has in spades. It's just showing up to work every day, being dependable, being able to count on them. Again, the stakes are incredibly high in real estate development and construction. And as a result of that, being able to depend on the people on your team is an absolute critical core value. And we talk about them often. We have a Slack channel where we shout out to people who are living them. And it certainly has created a great culture.
Yeah. So to that end, Matt, you said that you're somebody who has well, everybody has instincts, but it seems like you have good instincts that helped you in the film business and early on in the construction business, where you know how to deal with clients, you know how to deal with people, et cetera. And you have these core values. Now, how do you get people to, in a sense, to some degree, I guess, act like you, maybe not exactly like you, but with those core values? Does it come down to hiring? Is there training? Is it playbooks? Tell us a little bit about how you bring those things to life and replicate Matt to some degree.
This is a great question because it goes to why my construction company was so difficult and unsustainable. Our hiring practices have completely changed. And again, this intentional, deliberate process is one that I don't take shortcuts on because people are so important to our company and to our projects that I can't afford to shortchange the hiring process. So, what that looks like, usually we'll work with a recruiter or I'll post something on LinkedIn. But typically, a recruiter will submit some candidates and I'll talk to them for 30 minutes about who we are. But then, very quickly thereafter, I'll send out a questionnaire. And a lot of the questions in that will help me get a sense for the core values and for other aspects regarding their talent.
You send the
But
questionnaire to the candidate.
yeah,
Okay, just checking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 10 questions,
Yeah.
some multiple choice, some essays, and every candidate who comes to work here fills that out. And it gives me a really good sense for some of these concepts. And then following that, there's 2 or 3 assessments. And following that, there's a longer interview and then interviews with the team. And throughout each one of these steps, the core values are reinforced. And it's actually part of our assessment program on a quarterly and a yearly basis is how people are living to those values. It's something that in every conversation during the hiring process comes up. And of course, we hire incredibly talented people. So from a technical perspective, they're completely on the level. And then again, more importantly, is the people behind it, the heart and the caring and the connection.
Right.
Um,
And then beyond the hiring, is there a standard training program? Are there playbooks that everybody's following? Tell us just a little bit more about that.
we do a weekly pulse, then we have quarterly meetings. And because our company is fully remote, most of this is done via Zoom. And so everybody lives in the New York City area, including myself, but we don't have a centralized office where everybody gets together in person. Actually, just before this interview, we had our Monday morning pulse, which 3 weeks of the month the team does themselves, where they work through issues alone amongst just the team. And then once a month, I join and we go through things together. But that's exactly it, right? That tells you that 3 weeks of the month, the team is bought in and they're getting together and they're working through issues together as a team. And then I get to join them once a month to hear about it and discuss what I can express my opinions on. But is there a playbook? I wouldn't say that it's a written playbook yet, but it's something that's reinforced through these mini meetings and team gatherings that we have regularly.
Gotcha. And as a 100% remote company, as are we, you've obviously worked in an office environment before. What are some of the challenges and the opportunities? And with respect to the challenges, how have you overcome them? How do you address the fact that the team's not together in the office?
I think that a lot of that falls on me right now. We've got 8 full-time employees. I spend a lot of time going out to them. I'm going to meet them on the projects. I'm going to meet them in different areas. So I spend a lot of my time physically going out to not only hang out with them, but also to see the projects. And because we're in the built environment and we're constantly out building these projects, that's something that I need to keep my finger on the pulse on. And also it enables me to connect with various team members in the field. So we are fully remote, but I do also, just through the nature of what we do, get to see them quite a bit. But we also have remote professionals such as Sarah and Portia, who you introduced us to, who we have never met in person. About 2 months ago, they expressed, Matt, like we see the communications and we're in these weekly pulses, but we don't know too much about the specifics of each project. So we started a company Slack, and once a week all of the project managers will put the highest level updates into the Slack so that people like Sarah and Portia who don't live in New York can actually feel like they're part of the project and understand what the issues that the project managers are going through. So they're not in these silos completely, they're connected to the project more. And that Slack channel has been great for the company.
Yeah.
And as a social sort of water cooler as well.
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough how powerful that is, what you just said, which it's a combination of, you can almost call it over communicating because it's not something that has to be done from some perspectives, but it does have to be done because now you're bringing meaning to those people who are not able to press the flesh with clients as well as with their colleagues.
Absolutely. Over communication is absolutely key. I'm always on the phone, I'm always on Zoom. For me, talking to people on the team or to the client, I see that as a real core aspect of what I do at this particular moment in time where my feet are today.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Matt, this has been awesome. You've just shared some really killer insights with our audience. I really appreciate it. Where can people find out more about you and Greenlight Consulting and Management?
our website, gcm-nyc.com, and my LinkedIn is where I post about projects and different things about the owner's rep business.
Yeah. So those of you in construction who want to know how a guy in a company is bringing humanity to the New York City construction market, definitely follow Matt. Matt, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for listening. The Great Talent, Great Business podcast is brought to you by Work Better Now. Don't forget to review, subscribe, and download the worksheet for this episode at the link below. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on LinkedIn at Great Talent, Great Business or visit greattalentpodcast.com.